Hello, thank you for listening to Practical Bizz Podcast. This is Erica Saccoccio, and today I am joined with Ed Alves from People Resources. Ed happens to be my business coach, and I've worked with Ed for 6 years, 5 or 6 years. So it was a while ago. So he saw us through the COVID 3 years. That seems like still going on, and maybe we're rolling into monkeypox season, it seems like, watching the news today. But so he has helped us through a roller coaster of changes at our business. And so I thought it would be great to have him on the show today because I wanted to talk about how Stellar business concepts and Practical Bizz came to life, right? Because I don't know that everybody knows the story. And we just kind of jumped in, started shooting podcasts, and didn't even let the listeners know really the backstory. So today, since you were such a big part of creating that backstory, I thought you would be the perfect guest for our show.
Well, I appreciate the time.
Yeah. So let's talk about when I first connected with you, right? Talk about maybe where was I at as a entrepreneur?
Well, I think you were at a juncture that many successful people reach. And what I mean by that is you were making decisions about expansion. You had developed a product, if you will, that obviously lots of people liked and talked about and took advantage of. And someone like you that makes, that essentially is a little different in most entrepreneurs. You have this uncanny ability to look at the present. What's going on in my business? What do we need to do from a tactical standpoint? But you also have this uncanny knack to look forward. Mm-hmm. So this is happening today. This is happening this week. But what should next month look like? What should next year look like?
Yeah.
And also realizing that, because a lot of people dream, but you take it to another level, which is in order for us to get there, what do we need to do?
Yeah.
What do we need to do?
So I think I attribute that to a couple of things. One, early childhood education in the field of education is always changing, right? So we always have new things coming down the line, like universal pre-K that everybody's talking about, right? I was talking to you about that 4 years ago, saying this is coming down the line and we're all going to have to, at some point, sign up for this, right? It was the same thing with the quality rating systems in our state. Way before it's not really mandatory now, but in order for you to get childcare assistance, which most centers do, you had to be part of that. And we knew long before that happened that we needed to get on board really quick. So we were one of the first centers to not only jump on board, but actually be part of that panel while they were developing it. So I think, staying ahead of what's going on in your industry is a must if you're going to be successful, because I'm sure my industry is not, one of a kind. I'm sure that happens in many industries, and you have to know, you just have to have like this gut feeling of, here's what I know from history of what has happened. Here's what I hear, the rumblings in the talking, right? Because usually before things shift in our field, there's many years that happen in between that beginning part to the actual has to be in place. So I think that's probably where that comes from. It's just, our industry.
One of the, once again, successful traits, which obviously other people can borrow from you, is one that says, although I know lots about my business, I may be considered an expert in my business. Mm-hmm. You're not afraid to reach out and ask for help.
Yes,
simply put.
Absolutely.
If there's someone available or someone's available who have some expertise that you might benefit from, because you don't know for sure, you reach out. You're not afraid to say, take a risk, I guess, to the extent that you're going to invest some money and not feel like you've got enough for it, enough of a return for it. Or they may be suggesting things that you've already thought about, and which could, success breeds success kind of a thing. So, and you also have to be, I think, comfortable enough with getting criticism. I don't necessarily mean negative criticism, but challenging yourself to now go to the next level, even to be successful at the level you're at.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of how you embrace this idea of the future and how do we take advantage of it.
Yeah. I think, though, you were, because you listen so intently and very, very, like, you have great sound wisdom, that, like, I'm always like, yeah, this is how we're going to do it. And most of the people around me are like, yeah, it sounds great, Erica, right? Because it usually does, right? But I think what happens is, after I would leave my session with you, Ed, I would go back, and like 2 days later, I'd be like, shit, he's right. Sorry, you can edit that.
That's good.
But damn, he's really right. I didn't think about that, right? So you did that a lot of times to me, not in the moment that we were coaching together and working together, but a few days later. So I think that is one of the things when you are working with a coach, right? You can very, like you said, get quickly on the defense, or he doesn't know what he's talking about, or whatever. I'm not listening to, I'm going to do it my way. But at the end of the day, that's what I hired you for, was to give me open, honest, subjective feedback, right? And I think one of the other things that working with you allowed me to not be, I don't want to say vain, but I know I don't know everything. I'm certainly not implying that I do. But I think that maybe, for an example, we opened up 6 centers, right? We have flipped one we moved from a smaller location to a bigger one. But then, looking back at Greco, we had that open for 4 years. It didn't necessarily make us money. It wasn't really losing us money, but it wasn't really doing much, right? So my ego could have gotten in the way and just said, because it sounds better when you say I have 6 centers instead of 3 centers, right? It sounds good, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't benefiting the overall operation. And so I don't know that I would have made that decision as quickly had I not worked with you, if that makes sense. I think I would have probably held on to it for the sake of ego, if you will, of, having all of these centers. But when we worked with you, we really thought about streamlining the business and operations and resources, not just money, because the money was not really the issue. It was more the resources, like having the right people and, especially for our field, and knowing how quality was so important to me that I had to let go of, what? It doesn't make sense to keep that center. Yeah, it doesn't make money, but it doesn't lose money. So I could have just sat on it for years and, added another location on my website. But I felt like that would have it didn't benefit the operation. And so I think that was one of the things working with you that really helped me look at that, and looking at, my numbers, looking at my full-time enrollment and all of those things, I think with another eye was helpful. And then strategic planning meetings certainly was one of those things that I think moved us forward every year. And I'm sure most companies don't do strategic planning every year.
No.
They don't, right? So I think that's another thing that really was a differentiator for us. It was like, what are our goals going to be for, like you said, the now? Where are we now? Where are we moving to? What are the goals we're going to set for this year? And we just kept moving and striving towards them. And I think that definitely was helpful. So let's talk about, we've been talking for a long time. One of the things we had started talking about was me writing a book.
That's right.
Right? So we talked about that since how many years now?
4 years, maybe.
4 or 5 years. So then COVID happened, and my mom passed. And so lots of things changed in that time frame. So as we started to get back into just normal, whatever normal is anymore, but the normal reality and normal business operations, a lot of people had lost their businesses, right? We were lucky enough to have been in a good place. I don't know if luck, maybe that just being prepared, having all of our ducks in a row, and maybe again from working with you as a business coach, always looking at our numbers, always having, because we had to report to you what was going on. So when PPP came out, we had our stuff. We were ready to go. Our documents were like boom, boom, boom. I think we got the first round. I think we were probably one of the first 20 businesses in the state that got that, right? And that was one of the benefits of working with the coach, is that we were prepared when disaster hit. So looking back at our business, childcare in general, I mean, it's been on every news platform that there is. The early childhood education was one of the hardest hit industries, along with hospitality and restaurants. I mean, let's face those
Sure.
three industries got ran over, right? So many centers started closing. Friends that I've known that have been in the industry for a long time started to retire, started to sell their businesses to newer entrepreneurs. And then there were just a lot of mom and pop places that really just didn't make it. So me and Chris, my sister, started talking about what could we do to help those people. And that's kind of where everything we had been talking about for the last 4 years started to really culminate. And then, as I said, my mom had passed. We opened up Stella Business Concepts, which my mom's name is Stella, after my mom. And so we just said, this was kind of our way to give back. We have years and years of experience in multiple different things. Both me and my sister have skill sets in different areas. And we felt like we could bring a lot of value to those who were, one, had to pivot and haven't really quite been able to recover yet, or lost their job because of COVID, or left their job because of COVID. We felt like we could bring a lot to the table for those business owners. So that's how Stella Business was created. And then Practical Bizz Podcast is a part of Stella Business, and it is a way that we get our information out and collaborate and network with businesses outside of our local community. But it really was, the local community, and just seeing what happened through COVID-19 to businesses in some small way, could we help? So it kind of just tied to coaching and speaking and things that we had been talking about. We put up a YouTube channel literally right before COVID-19 hit. I think our first or second show was on February 2019. And that show is called the Childcare Director's Chair. So yes, that particular channel is very specific for the childcare industry, but Stella Business Concepts is really where we share good general business knowledge that would go across any industry. And you've worked in many industries, but you were able to coach not only a childcare facility, but, talk a little bit about your experience of, different kinds of businesses that you have worked with, and how you're able to translate that information to different folks.
Thank you. I just needed to add something to how we were talking about your success, where it came from. And I remember back when you and I and your sister Chris had a discussion about something that was taking place really in other countries, but not here.
Yes.
I.e. the COVID
oh my
business.
God, I remember.
And
it was
like,
COVID.
what are we going to do? And I don't know. Do you really think it's going to happen here? And we brainstormed it a little bit, but we introduced the concept that we were all thinking about. And,
I remember.
And
I remember
how
that
it
conversation.
might, worst case, it could happen to us, kind of thing. And
You
I
asked
think
me,
that
do you
started-
have insurance to cover that? And I laughed and said, that would be having insurance if somebody got the flu. I mean, obviously, I had no idea at that point what was going to happen to the world. But yes, I remember you asked me, did we have insurance if one of our staff got COVID? Would we be covered? And this, at this point, hadn't hit the U.S. yet. And I kind of laughed. But again, wise Ed knows.
Well, it was, I think it's a willingness that you both had to essentially be open enough to hear another person's opinion. And that's important, I think. And so given the success that you had surviving and thriving with the COVID issue, you all, I think, came away with decisions about the business and what would be most profitable way to deal with this now, and pivot if it's necessary to rethink what we provide.
Which we had to do several times.
You had to do several times. And I think in the process of that, you, as you do with most things, you're sensitive to what other people who take the risk of running their own business go through.
Yeah.
And maybe in particular women who do that, who have another set of challenges, unfortunately, but they do. And so your willingness to really use that opportunity to move out, grow in some other directions that you had thought about but didn't do.
Yeah.
And so during a period where people were, kind of hunkering down and just trying to survive, you all were truly, yes, but there's opportunities here, and you saw it that way. And so those are the kinds of individuals that I've had success working with. A lot of folks want to grow. The question is, what are they willing to do to grow?
And you're probably right. There are probably certain traits that you have to have.
Yeah.
And
And if you don't have those, you may want to grow. You may be willing to pay someone to help you grow. Mm-hmm. But if you're not open to those, you're really asking them to think outside the box and to look at some things differently.
Yeah. Which is great. You're like you're my guy on the side. Like make sure I don't get blindsided.
Well,
right?
That's exactly right, because you're doing the day-to-day.
That's correct. Yeah.
And what you have is someone else who can say, now let's take a breath here, and let's consider, here's what we've observed. Let's talk about those. And because it's difficult to do both. You're operating the day-to-day, and you're also thinking strategically, what do we do next week, next year, over the next 10 years? And it becomes a critical point. Your question was what kinds of businesses?
Yeah.
I think that we're looking at people who are at a juncture, and maybe they've been in business a year, maybe they've been in business 15 years, but they're at a juncture where they need to decide about their involvement in the organization, in the company, how much they're going to be involved, how many hours, so on and so forth. Is it still the profitable business that I thought it was going to be? Because some things, they seem to make up in volume in people's minds that if we're doing more revenue, then we're doing the right thing. And once, in fact, as you know, it's about profits as well as revenue. Sometimes it's.
I was just going to say that, but you went right into it. So
So it's about being open to looking at, examining that. Yeah. So I think working with someone like you who's been experienced on those things, I think clients benefit from, a couple of things. It's your objectivity. Yep. You're the outsider looking in who's not driven so much by the day-to-day needs, but you can look kind of beyond that a little bit, and that's useful. So you bring that objectivity, that input, and you can also they have the benefit of, once again, not being there every day to maybe look at other industries and determine if there are ideas, strategies in those industries that could, in fact, apply.
Yeah,
because some of the more generic way, they're more crossover than not.
Yeah.
But you've got to be willing to kind of look outside the box to see how that might apply.
Yeah. So when it was kind of interesting. So when we started the podcast and I started reaching out to other business owners, and they were like, tell me a little bit about your background. And so as soon as you say early childhood, they immediately think, I don't know, unicorns and rainbows and a lady with a sweater and a vest and a little bag. I'm a shark. I'm a shark when it comes to business, childcare or not. Like, I'm very serious about business. I love all business. I think that there are so many things like customer service and customer retention and having happy employees, and all these things run across no matter what business you have, right? Marketing, how do you do marketing? But all these things are, good business practice. What's the standard in your industry? I know the standard in mine. Do you meet the standards in your industry? And if not, how are you going to get there, right? So these are the things that set you apart, So I think that I need people to understand that you shouldn't be dismissive of hearing other people's opinions regardless of their background, because I've not only done this my whole life, right? So you have worked with many different types of businesses, from, X to, Y to Z kind of, So I think that is important for people to understand, as well. So our thought is we're going to work on a book. We're going to get that started. I think we're going to get an ebook started first because it just makes sense to maybe get like a teaser out there. So I'm hoping to get that done by the end of the year.
1 second.
Yeah.
Tell the audience your visions for this book, the kind of book, the structure, and how someone would benefit.
So there are so many aspects to childcare. It will be definitely, this particular ebook will be based on childcare, but it's going to be the good, the bad, and the ugly of being a director. And it's a funny title, but it is going to cover everything from how to handle a site visit from a state inspector with grace, be prepared, how to not take everything personal, because sometimes that, you think everybody's out to get you. The ugly side of that is sometimes if you get a worker who doesn't like you, that could be the case, right? So there's a way to handle that as well, right? Everything from great parents to parents who maybe challenge your skill set, staffing. So all the pieces, I think we're going to do probably like 10 or 11 little mini chapters, if you will. But for somebody who's new in the industry, when I say new, 5 years or less, this would be really a must-have. Because, you go to school for education, you may, have gotten your degree in early childhood education. They don't teach you a whole lot of business part, right? So, they're not talking to you in those classes about how do you handle a parent who, is super upset and, blasting you on social media or, outside in the parking lot upset. So all of those pieces, I think, need to be handled. And so I think that will be something that I feel like I could do very quickly to get people to at least get on their way to handle some of the problems that they deal with very, very daily in our field, multiple times a day, honestly.
Yeah, that's good. I thought it was important that people see get a preview, but also see the benefit, the kind of thing you'd have on your desk and that you could refer to daily, if not more often.
I mean, those things happen. My staff sometimes laugh at me because my desk, when I leave at night, it has to be clean. And if I walk in and there's stuff on the desk, I immediately, without even thinking, just move it back. And they say, why do you do that? I just put the paper down. And I say, I always do that because if my inspector comes in, I want to be ready and organized and have a place for them to sit because there's forms and things. So just like I take care of my customers and my staff, I would do that also. That's just part of my culture for the worker. They need a space. They need to look at files, have everything that that they need, that they're coming to look for during a visit in one spot. So you're not running around like a chicken, right? Looking for where's the CPR cards, where's their insurance, where's, the new teacher's fingerprints. Oh, it's not in the file. Oh, well, let me look. I know they emailed it, right? So just things like that will make being a director a lot easier. And these are just things that happen. I mean, in my time, I've had probably 12 directors that have worked under me, and they all have the same issues, right? They're all the same challenges. So it's not really that difficult to pinpoint the top 12.
Exactly.
10 or 12. So, but, getting back to Stellar Business Concepts, our thought was that we could help coach or consult depending on, and they are different things, folks. Coach or consult depending on where that business owner is at. We also provide workshops on site here. We haven't really shot any virtual yet, but I'm not really opposed to that, where if somebody wants to join in from another state via Zoom, we probably will have that option up, I would say, by September once Derek's here at full time. And we're planning on doing a business conference as well, where we're going to have some other speakers, probably in New England, other women leaders, be part of that and put together a women business conference. So we have a few things up our sleeve.
So it sounds like there's no shortage of, obviously opportunities that you're seeing.
Of course.
And also plenty of opportunities to get the word out and train people. And I guess what I'm attempting to say is that to people in the audience who like what we're talking about and have needs, that they shouldn't hesitate to call and not get their name on a list, so to speak, but also to find out if so, in terms of working with them, how would we do it, how soon we could do it, and why it'd be a good investment.
Yeah.
So we don't want to scare anybody away because we're busy and moving ahead.
Yep.
We want to make them part of it, which is what you've always told me.
Yeah. So I say when you go back to opportunity, I cannot think of a time where more people are starting a business than what I'm seeing right now. I can't think of a time where people prioritize doing what they love instead of worrying about the paycheck. I have never seen a time where people, I'm going to say midlife, really have just explored opportunities that they maybe wouldn't have done prior to COVID, right? So, I mean, the opportunity is there for businesses like ours, but also businesses like yours, for those of you listening. There has never been more of an opportunity to grow than there is right now. Even though everybody's like, oh, the economy's in the tank, da-da-da. Anybody can find the most negative things in the world to focus on. There is opportunity now, and the people who take it now are going to be, I mean, we see this every, 10 to 12 years. There's a crash. We're at the high. We're at the low. We opened in 2008, which was the last time that it crashed and blah, blah, blah. Nobody's going to make it. And, why would you open a business in 2008? Because that was the time that it was ready to do it. And I feel like it's the same thing with Stellar Business Concepts and Practical Bizz Podcast and the Childcare Director's Chair. I feel like it is just time. The opportunity is there, and we're going to fill that need. And I think it'll be just as successful as our first 6 businesses were. And I think that, I think it's good timing. And I think it's a good time for people who are on the fence about, do I just do it? And if you don't do it now, when? When are you going to do it? When are you going to do it?
Good advice.
Yeah. I don't know. Is there anything else that you think that the audience should know before we?
Well, yeah, I think there's at least one thing that that people should understand about both you and Chris. You have a certain amount of empathy for people who have, for whatever reason, they've reached the point where they need to make some changes. Mm-hmm. And that may be in starting a business. It may be in terms of, because maybe you've lost your income flow for whatever reason. Yep. And so they need to start, but they need help. It's not an easy thing. It can be a lonely time. It's a challenging time. But you both are empathetic in that regard. Not to the point where you kind of let people slack off or give them too much of the benefit of the doubt. But it's a combination of that empathy and motivation, and let's keep this going. And you really, and I think that's valuable for people to know, because, there are plenty of advisors, consultants available. In my opinion, most of which are, it's kind of like the book that you described, how it'll be it's user-friendly and practical, and you keep it on your desk.
Right.
This is about, can I access this person? Are they going to really understand where I'm coming from? And will they be available to give me advice as things change? And they'll hold me accountable.
Yeah.
And I think you all do that rather effectively.
Thank you. I feel like that probably just had a lot to do with our upbringing, growing up in with a single parent household. Not a lot of money. We had to make things work, and so we just learned how to do that. But yeah, certainly. I mean, I can remember growing up really poor, where food stamps used to look like Monopoly money, and going to the store with those, and I don't know, just that being poor gives you an advantage, I guess. That's the only way I can describe it. It really felt more like a blessing than a curse. It teaches you how to be thrifty. It teaches you how to stay on a budget. It teaches you to really be able to make decisions, because we had to make decisions all the time. And then our mom was super great. Our mom, she always was involved with the community, and almost every business person I talked to in the podcast, what do you do for your community, right? It can't always just be take. You want your community to support you. I'm not going to tell you what charity you should help. You have to find that in yourself. But I think that, our core values are just, they are what they are. And it definitely is, given to family, given to community, being passionate about what you do. And I certainly love teaching. So, obviously this was a no-brainer for me and Chris, right? But I think the empathy too. My mom taught us empathy, but also humility too, right? I think there's those pieces that, kind of just came together, and then here we are. We grew up around, everybody in our family had a business. So that entrepreneur spirit pretty much was always around us. So that was also a benefit.
Well, you all have done good.
Well, thanks. And thanks for your help. Anyway, so we would love for you, if this sounds great, we would love for you to stay tuned. We have new episodes that come out every Monday on Practical Bizz podcast. We are on all the major platforms. We also would love if you could follow us, give us a rating or review, and like us on our Instagram page, which is Stella Business Concepts _RI1. And check out our childcare director's chair if you are in the early education field. Give it a subscribe. I know we don't have any new episodes up there, but we will be filming like crazy starting in September. So we hope that we can help you out, and reach out to us if you feel the need.